Hi, we are working on chapter 9 in our geometry book, but actually we're soon going to be going out of the book and doing some things with trigonometry that are not in your textbook. So what we're starting with is basic right triangle trigonometry. And to start with, we've talked in class about the three basic ratios wherein for any given angle measure in a right triangle, and this only applies to right triangles, there is, for any angle measure, there is a specific ratio that applies to the opposite side over the hypotenuse, no matter how big or small the triangle is. And that ratio is called the sine. There is a specific ratio that applies to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse for any given angle measure, and that's called the cosine. And the third one is the tangent, which is the ratio of the opposite side to the adjacent side. So let me label this triangle ABC, and we're going to put some numbers in here. And we're going to start with finding a side measure, a side length, if you have, let's call this 48 degrees. And if you have an angle measure and you have a side length. And in this case, we're going to make the side length the hypotenuse, and it is 8. So what we're going to do here is find the other two sides, we'll call them x and y, by using these three ratios. So in this particular case, the one we cannot use is the tangent, because that would be the tangent of 48 degrees would be opposite x over adjacent y. But that would give us two variables, and we can't solve an equation in two variables. We would have to have a second equation. So the two that we can use are the sine of x, the sine of 48 equals x over 8, or the cosine of 48 equals y over 8. So let's use the sine first. The sine of 48 is equal to opposite, which is x, over hypotenuse, which is 8. Now, let me find a calculator. I'll be right back. All right, now I have a calculator in hand, and we're going to take a look at the sine of 48 and then multiply it by 8, because as you can see, all we have to do to get x by itself is multiply both sides by 8. So the sine of 48, and we'll go out a couple or three digits, sometimes we'll go out 4. The sine of 48 is 0.7431. Now, if I just leave that in the calculator, and here it is, 0.7431, and simply hit multiplied by times, and then 8, and hit enter, that way we preserve the entire sine of 48 that was in the calculator. We don't have to round it. Now we need to round, because now we have an answer, 5.945. I'm going to round that to 5.95. And that was x, so 5.95 is the length of this side. Now we'll find the cosine. We'll do cosine of 48 is equal to y over 8. And so I will look up the cosine of 48, and I get 0.669, and then I multiply that by 8, and I get 5.35. Now, it's a good idea to check your work and see if that makes sense. And in fact, it does, because if this is 48, this one must be 42. Get a 2 in here. This one must be 42, because those two have to add up to 90. This side is slightly smaller because this angle is slightly smaller. 42 degrees versus 48. This side is 5.35. This is a little bigger at 5.95. So that all makes sense. All right, now let's take another case. We'll do three cases here, but the second one I want to do is this. If you have a triangle in which you are not given the hypotenuse, let's make this angle 37 degrees, and we're going to make this side 10, and we'll call this x and this y. So now we're looking for the hypotenuse, and what we have is the opposite side And so the one that we cannot use is the cosine, because that would be adjacent over hypotenuse, and that would give us two variables. So what we can use is the tangent, tan over x, or we can use the sine, tan over y. So we'll start with the tangent this time. The tangent of 37 is equal to 10 over x. Now, I'm going to look up the tangent of 37, and I'll show you the shortcut in a minute. Tangent of 37 is 0.75, approximately 754. 754 equals 10 over x. I'm going to multiply both sides by x to get rid of the denominator. So those two cancel. X over here, I get 0.754x equals 10. And then I divide by 0.754. Divide by 0.754. So what I end up with is 10 divided by 0.754, which turns out to be 0.754, which turns out to be 13.26. So we've just found x at 13.26. Now, the shortcut would be simply do, when you start out up here, you know you're going to have to divide 10 by whatever number this tangent of 37 is. So just start out by saying 10 divided by tangent 37. That saves a couple of steps and gets you right to the end, and maybe makes it a little bit more accurate because you don't have to round. So if I do 10 divided by tangent 37, what I get is 13.27, which is a little bit more accurate than what I got because it doesn't involve rounding as I had to round here, just 0.754. All right, then to finish this off, we could do sine of 37 is equal to 10 over y. So I'm going to do 10 divided by sine 37, 10 divided by sine 37, and I get 16.6 over here. Now, a couple of things. This makes sense because I know that the hypotenuse has to be the longest side, and it is in fact bigger than either of these two. And I also know that if this is a 37, this has to be a 53 in order to make 90 for these two. And this side is bigger than this side because it's opposite the bigger angle. All right, so in the next video, we're going to look at the other part of SOHCAHTOA, which is finding angle measures when you have side lengths. I'll be back.